Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the enLIFEned podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the enLIFEned podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to season 2 of the enLIFEned podcast. This is your host, Jen, if you haven't figured that out already. And I am so excited to be back with season 2 because I have got some incredible interviews lined up. There are some amazing guests coming on the show, and a big part of this season is going to be more solo episodes that you'll hear from me. So they'll be short and sweet, these ones. It won't necessarily be as long as the interviews that I do, but there's some like wisdom that has been moving through me in the last year, and there's so much that I want to share. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to everyone that was a part of season 1. So whether you're a guest on the show or whether you're a listener or whether you just followed along on social media and commented on some of the posts, thank you so much, because without you, we wouldn't have the enLIFEned podcast. And it's funny because I've chosen to record this on the 11th of the 11th. If you know me, you'll know I love numbers and numerology. And it's actually the same date of the enLIFEned podcast going live this time last year. So happy birthday as well to the enLIFEned podcast. She is one, and she has been reached all over the world. I really love nerding out and looking at the stats and seeing where people have tuned in from around the world and the incredible numbers that we've had. You know, we've had thousands of people listening to this podcast, and it honestly brings me so much joy in my heart that people are here listening in to the incredible interviews that I got to do last year and this year. We had some amazing guests from all around the world just sharing their magic, sharing their stories, sharing about the businesses that they have and different modalities that they do. And this year, I promise you, we are going deeper. We are going probably a little bit more controversial for a few topics as well. And like I said, I want to share more of my personal journey and some of the teachings that I offer, you know, through my work that I do. I want to start bringing that out to this platform as well. So I'm so excited that you're here along for the ride. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a life update. But honestly, 2023 has thrown some curveballs. So I feel like, to sum up 2023 for me on a personal level, it's been a blessed shit show. And I say that with love because I love life and I love experiencing all that life has to offer, and I love all the learnings. But holy shit, come on. It has been topsy-turvy. So to begin with, I split up with my partner that you may have heard me talk about in season 1. And it was a beautiful conscious uncoupling. We decided that we were on different paths in lives, that we wanted different things. And even though, you know, we had seen each other, you know, we had been seeing each other for about 3 years, we had blended our 2 families together. We had 3 children between us. We had a little dog. We basically had our shit sorted and we were going well, but we both felt as though we weren't an energetic match anymore, that we just wanted to go off and do our separate things in life. And so even though we had, forward projected and looked into the future and saw ourselves together, we decided that the timelines that we were on weren't going to be in alignment. So we separated. I refer to it as I got portaled, because the conversation came up on the 5th of the 5th. We were on holidays up in Port Douglas, and things were actually going quite well at the time. And then we had the conversation that we weren't on the same page anymore. And from there, just started unraveling all the pieces that needed to be unraveled. And to be honest with you, I went through such a deep grieving process. I didn't realize until I was actually at a festival the week later. It was called Earth Frequency Festival here in Brisbane. And I was with my beautiful girlfriend there, and I just couldn't drop into the experience, and I didn't know why. And then when I just had some alone time and I sat with it, just all of the grief poured out of me. And even through a separation, we can experience all 5 stages of grief. And that's what came out for me. And one of the biggest things I learned through that was that I'm safe to feel my feelings. I am safe to feel as though that my life has completely crumbled and falling apart, and that it's okay to just be in the shit, to be in the mess of it, and noticing where I wanted to project out how I was feeling, because it's almost like I couldn't contain it. One of the biggest things that I moved through with the separation was anger. And even though it was a conscious uncoupling, and I say conscious uncoupling, it sounds like such a wanky term. I get it. And thank you to Gwyneth Paltrow, who I think actually coined that term many years ago when she separated from Chris Martin. But a conscious uncoupling to us meant that we had still a lot of love and respect for each other. There was no cheating. There was no spitefulness. There was no rage towards each other. In fact, we remained friends for a little while, and we remained living together as well. We had houses and finances and life and business stuff caught up together. So it wasn't just a clean break, see you later. We had things that we had to sort out, and to really make it easier as a transition for the children as well. We really prioritized making sure that we dissolved the relationship in the most loving way that we could possibly do. And at times it was really hard, because at times when you're experiencing anger or disappointment or rage, all you want to do is shout and scream and throw plates at the wall. And not that I did any of that. I did contain myself through that. But sometimes it's easier, you would think, just for that clean break, get out of my life, we're done. I need to just be in my anger. So it was a real journey. It was a real process. And even, 6 months down the track, there's still waves of feelings of that grief process that come up. And one of the biggest things I learned through that is that it's okay. It's okay to still feel disappointment or resentment. Or sometimes I still just get waves of like, I really care about this particular person. And, I wonder how he's doing. We decided that even though we tried for a friendship, the friendship wasn't working how we thought it would. We were still in each other's lives, probably a little bit too much. And so we decided, no, let's, now that everything is done and we've had that separation, let's just call this quits and see how we go. And perhaps we can work on a friendship later on. And it was actually really, really beautiful. We also had a closing ceremony of our relationship, where we came together and we set up a little ceremony space. We lit a candle, and we just took some time to really honor what it is that we loved about each other, what we wanted to acknowledge about the other person, what we were grateful for from the other person and the relationship itself. And then we cut the karmic cords. We signed off on our soul contract that said that we were going to journey through life together. And we decided then, that's where we've truly closed down this portal that we opened together, and we are both free from each other's karmic ties. And so interestingly, we did it just sat on the floor in my lounge room to do this. And after we blew out the candle, at the end of that, I have a rose quartz lamp that's in my lounge room. And like literally a few seconds after we blew out the candle, the rose quartz lamp bulb blew. And we just looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, because obviously the crystal rose quartz represents love. And so for the bulb to blow right at that very moment, we were like, okay, yep, we know we're done. And there was tears. Like we were so loving towards each other, and we were so conscious of making sure the other person was okay, and we would check in with each other constantly. And it was really beautiful. And relationships that end don't have to be messy. It can be done, with a conscious awareness that says, hey, we had a beautiful experience together, and this is our ceiling, or this is the end of the line, or this is just where we get to go our separate ways and discover who we are on an individual level and go out into the world and have a whole new experience. And so that was a really, really incredible part of the year, and at times soul destroying, and at times heart opening, and at times just messy. So it gets to be all of the things, because as humans in this life, we are all the things. We're always all of the things. And so for me, it's about inviting in those opportunities to grow and to learn and to move through things. So that's the latest there. So as of today, I'm single, which I didn't think I'd actually say out loud again. I didn't see myself in this position. But what it's done is it's really opened me to seeing things from a different perspective in life, giving myself the opportunity to just be open. If I was to meet someone that aligned with my values and that wanted to walk this path together, not closing my heart off to that, not saying, well, I don't trust men, or I don't want to be with anyone. My heart is wide open. I'm not letting the breakdown of the relationship that I have dictate how I move forward into another relationship. And so it's been interesting, because I ended up jumping on a couple of dating apps and just to sort of dip my toe in, see what was out there. And I don't think those apps are for me personally. I connected with some really lovely people, had like literally probably a couple of conversations. I met one person off them, and I just don't feel as though the dating apps are aligned to my values. But it was a very interesting experience to notice when I was on them, how much we judge people based on their looks, or based on the bio that they write, or based on the things that they're doing on in their photos. So for me, I had standards. I had really, really high standards, and I got to learn so much about myself in the process, which is what happens. We learn about ourselves through every experience that we have. And one of the things that I've really, really noticed through being single again is the connection to myself, and how close I am with myself, essentially, how deeper inwards I've been able to go. And it's been incredible. My intuition is as strong as it has ever been. My alone time that I have, so I have my kids half of the time. So the times that I get to be alone, I love it. I remember the first time after Dave and I had separated, and I was in the house on my own. The kids had gone to their dads. I didn't even have the dog at this time, because we were sharing custody of our dog. And I remember sitting in my house going, oh shit, what now? Like, I am so alone. And I hadn't experienced such a deep level of aloneness. And it was like, what do I do? Am I supposed to like fill my time with something? Aren't I supposed to be enjoying this? Like what abundance of opportunities do I have? Should I clean? Should I just watch Netflix and eat ice cream? Do I have a little ceremony and work with some oracle cards? What do I do with my time? And so just being in this new experience just opened up so many opportunities for me. And so the relationship that I have built with myself has been incredible, and loving the aloneness, loving going to bed and having the whole bed to myself, and setting up my pillows in a different way. I actually set up my pillows. It's kind of like being in a coffin. Everyone who hears about this is like, oh, wow, you're such a weirdo. But I have my normal pillow behind my head. I have a pillow down each side of me. So if you can imagine, I'm like a coffin, and I just like squish in between my pillows, and it's how I sleep now, because I'm just so used to, or was so used to, having another body next to me. So it was an almighty pivot, and I got to redecorate my house the way I wanted to have it. And I got to cook everything that I wanted to cook, or eat when I wanted to eat, and not have to wait around for other people. And you do these things in a relationship because that's just how life is. But when you are on your own, the whole dynamic in the household shifts. And just getting to know myself when I'm not giving myself away to another person or supporting someone else through life, as you do in a relationship, emotionally walking through life together. Who do I get to be for myself? How do I get to show up for myself? How do I get to just exist in this world when it's just me, myself, and I? And I started noticing that my internal dialogue was getting louder. Instead of having conversations at the dinner table with a partner, I was having the conversations with myself. In fact, I went through a stage of talking out loud in my car to myself, almost like having a team meeting to check in with myself, because that's just what felt right to me. And so it's been such a beautiful journey of opening myself back up to me, and just noticing where perhaps I had left pieces of myself beforehand, calling those pieces back and just allowing myself to feel whole and complete again, because it was in a relationship that I had allowed myself to feel whole and complete in that space. And so it was bringing all of those pieces back. And the way I refer to it is that, when I went through the separation and the breakdown of everything that I knew to be true, it was like a wrecking ball to a mirror. And instead of trying to pick up the pieces of the mirror and put them all back together, I picked up the pieces that I just wanted to take with me, and I made a mosaic. And so my life became a beautiful piece of art. And the pieces that didn't align anymore stayed on the floor. And so what I'm sharing through all of this is, if you're going through a separation, or it's on the horizon, or if you've been through one, see it as an opportunity to just come home to yourself. What is it yourself needs to be in relationship with yourself, to be so nourished by yourself? And honestly, it's been such a beautiful experience. The whole thing has been incredible. So earlier in the year, my beautiful coach, Rosie, was organizing an overseas experience over in the south of France. It was a Mary Magdalene retreat. And as soon as I heard about it, I knew that I had to be there. I actually was sitting in a medicine journey last year, and I had Mary Magdalene come to me through this journey. And I just remember thinking to myself, not now. Like, I cannot even fathom that Mary Magdalene has come to me, and that she wants to be invoked by me and work with me, and, have this divine feminine move through me. And I was like, no, I've got to sort my shit out. I don't have time, because it just felt so massive. And I wanted to learn more about Mary Magdalene and work with her. She's like the divine goddess, the divine feminine. And I was like, not now. So when I heard about this retreat that was happening over in the south of France, I thought, yep, I'm going to this. This is happening. And I'd actually planned to go on my own, and I was going to do a tour of Italy whilst I was over there. So I was going to fly over a few weeks beforehand, do a tour of Italy, then do this retreat in the south of France. So anyone that doesn't know, my mum's Italian. And so I've got ties to Italy, and I've never been there before. In fact, I've never been to Europe before. Had never been to Europe before. And anyway, I mentioned to my mum that I wanted to go on this retreat, and she was like, "Oh my God, it sounds incredible. I want to come with you." And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, look, I'm going. You can come with me. You can do what I'm doing. You can be part of it, but I want to do this. And I said to her, I said, well, I really want to spend some time in Italy. I haven't been to Italy. If I'm going all the way to France, then I might as well spend some time in Italy whilst I'm over there. And so I'd started looking at different tours, and she'd kind of made noise saying, look, I don't really want to go to Italy. I went there a few years ago. I'm from there. I would really love to go to London and Paris. And so I thought, okay, all right, well, let's go to London and Paris then. And so we planned our trip together, and I was so excited for it. Like going overseas with my mum. I'd been overseas with my mum when I was just before I turned 21. We went to Vietnam together, and we met my sister over there who was living there at the time, and it was a really special experience. So I knew that I could travel with my mum, and we get on really well. And unfortunately, before we went to London, she'd actually sustained a knee injury. And so when we got over there, she was a little bit slower on her feet and hobbling around a bit. And then we spent the week in London. And because you do a lot of walking over there, you do a lot of sightseeing, you go to a lot of places, it really started taking a toll on her body. And then the night we were in London for a week, and then we caught the Eurostar train down to Paris. And the night that we got to Paris, I remember it was raining, it was dark. We got in a taxi and we headed to our Airbnb. And we had planned to spend the week in Paris and then get the train down to the south of France for the Mary Magdalene retreat. So we got to our Airbnb, and unfortunately, when we were there, like probably, I don't know, 15 minutes, there was an accident that happened. So my mum had a fall in our Airbnb, and I just remember my whole world felt like it was shattering at that time. I was so worried for her because she was already struggling with the pain of her knee. And she's got, osteoporosis. So where, some people might have a fall and just bruise, she breaks. And so unfortunately, she was in a lot of pain. And I said to her, look, do I need to call an ambulance? What do I do? And she sort of said, no, no, no. So anyway, got her some pain relief, got her comfortable, and she just rested for the evening. And then the following day, tried to get out for a bit of a walk just to sort of see, how bad the damage was, whether she was bruised or not. And then she decided so that was the Sunday night she had the fall. Monday, she rested and went out for a little walk. And then on the Tuesday, we went out to take a look around Paris. We got a pass for the big red bus to go see all the sites. And I said to her, look, why don't you just stay on the bus, go around and see the sites, and I'll jump off the bus, jump back on, and we'll meet at the Eiffel Tower later on. And so we did that. And once we'd finished our day, we were walking back to the train, and she was in a lot of pain. And I said, look, why don't we just get a car back to the Airbnb? And as stubborn as she is, she said, no, we got train tickets. We got to catch the train. And it was a fair distance to walk. But she insisted. So we went. And then Wednesday morning, it all fell apart. And I had been asleep downstairs of our Airbnb, and I heard her call out to me, and I went upstairs, and I just knew that things weren't okay. And so she was like, I'm in such unbearable pain and I can't move. I'm like, okay, it's time for an ambulance. I need to get you to a hospital because this is not okay. And I'm talking stubborn Italian woman. You don't go by ambulance. You don't go to hospital unless you're dying. It's a thing for her, right? So anyway, I'd already been in touch when when the accident happened on the Sunday night with our Airbnb host. I didn't know the number for the emergency services over there. So I'd messaged him and I said, hey, this is what's happened. Can you give me the emergency services number? And the number that he gave me is the number that I rang, which is apparently a local number. So instead of like in Australia, we have 000, and that's sort of like the only number that you can call to access police, fire, or ambulance. Over in Paris, it's a little bit different. So the number that I called, first of all, it was all in French, and I had to try and, say I need to speak to someone in English. I need to speak to someone in English. And I eventually got through to someone, and then the call got disconnected. And so I called back again, and I was able to get onto a translator. And then I was speaking with the translator, trying to say what happened. And then the translator's like, unfortunately, the call's been disconnected. You're going to have to call back again. I was like, okay. So I took another deep breath in. I called the number back again. And I then ran out onto the street of our Airbnb, and I flagged someone down, and I said, do you speak English? And they said, a little bit, broken English. And I explained the situation. I think my mum may have a broken leg. She's in a lot of pain. I need an ambulance. She needs to get to hospital. So they so beautifully were able to take the call for me onto emergency services and organize an ambulance. However, it wasn't an ambulance that came. It was rescue. So it wasn't paramedics. They weren't equipped with pain relief. I'm not going to lie. They were like 3 ridiculously good-looking Parisian men that came along, but they were rescue-based. And so they didn't have like proper stretchers or not even the green whistle for pain relief. They were basically like a rescue service that like transferred to hospitals. And I found out later on that the number that I was given was sort of like a general number for general emergencies, not like paramedics where you actually need like medication for pain and stuff. Anyway, so mum got taken to hospital. I wasn't allowed to stay there, and I wasn't allowed to be with her. She obviously had to go through tests and x-rays and all sorts of things. And the problem is we didn't have our Australian phone numbers connected over there. We had bought data only SIMs for over there. It just so happened that the SIM card that my mum had on her phone was able to make calls. I had my personal phone, but the SIM card that I had was data. And so the hospital said, oh, look, we'll call you when, you can come and see her. And I said, well, I don't have a number. I don't have a phone number here. And they're like, well, you call us. Here's the number. So I took the train back to our Airbnb, and I put my Australian SIM card in the phone, and it didn't work. I'd switched on roaming and I had no idea what was going on. So after a couple of hours, I caught the train back and into the hospital, was able to, after a lot of waiting, after a lot of questions, I had found my mom that no one knew where she was. And I found her, and it was like the reunited moment of us seeing each other. We just broke down, and oh God, I lost it. She lost it. We were like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, how in all fuckery did we end up in Paris with her being injured and in hospital? And we had a really, really beautiful conversation. She said, look, I've been diagnosed with a fracture. They're going to do surgery. I'm going to be okay. I can recover here, but I really want you to go on the retreat in the south of France. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not leaving you. I can't leave you here. And she's like, this is what you came for. You need to go. I'll be fine here. And she had her phone, she had her iPad, she had Google Translate, she had games on her iPad. Like, she had plenty to keep her going. Now, the hospital in France, in Paris, was not amazing. I mean, like, there wasn't even air conditioning. There was just like open windows. Like, it's not, when people say that we have an amazing healthcare system in Australia, until you're actually in a hospital system overseas, you don't realize how good we've got it in Australia. And so she insisted that I go. And so this was on the Wednesday, and I wasn't due to leave until the Saturday. And so I spent as long as I could with her in visiting hours, making sure she was okay, making sure that she was getting proper pain relief, that she needed whatever she needed, she got, and, bringing her food because the food was horrendous in the hospital. So during those couple of days that I was still in Paris, I was trying to get out and see the place and try and have the experience of Paris. People go to Paris for love. People go to Paris for the food and the wine and the culture and the experience. And here I am walking around like I felt like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, like just left in a big city, abandoned, by the parents. Like, I don't even know what to do here. So I tried as hard as I could to be in the experience. I went to places. I went to the Eiffel Tower. I went to the Louvre. I walked around the city and just was myself and just got to just be with who I was, and did a bit of souvenir shopping. And, then I would go to the hospital and spend time with my mom. And it was a few days actually that she was unfortunately in so much pain. She kept getting put down the line of when the surgery was going to be. And, initially it was diagnosed as a fracture of the femur. And it wasn't until I think it was the Friday, so a couple of days later, the doctor came in and spoke to her in broken English and said, actually, it's not the femur, it's the neck of femur. It is your hip, and you'll need your hip replaced. So the whole time, she'd been, misdiagnosed, and things were starting to fall apart a bit. There was a massive issue with translation. And so luckily, Google Translate was an absolute godsend. But it was very like the nurses were, not able to administer pain relief when she needed it, for example. And there was just a lot of things that were very different to what we're used to in our hospital system in Australia. And so I went to see her on the Friday because I had to leave early on the Saturday morning to go down to the south of France for the retreat. And I wouldn't have made it in the morning before I had to catch the train. So I went in and I spent Friday evening with her, and we just chatted and spoke about, all of the things. And, she was really excited for me. And she said, look, it's straightforward surgery. I've been told that, these are the best orthopedic surgeons at this hospital. I'll be fine, go and enjoy yourself. And I found peace in it. I had found peace on the Wednesday when she had gone into the hospital. I'd found peace in not going to the retreat as well. I was disappointed, but I was like, I need to be here for her. And then when she insisted that I went, I was like, okay, there's nothing much else I can do. Like, I'm just sitting here in visiting hours. If she insisted I'm going, I'm going. And so the Saturday morning, I got onto the train, and it was about a 3-hour train ride down to the south of France. And I got there and I met up with one of my beautiful friends from Australia. And we caught a taxi for about an hour and a half to the little village where we were doing the retreat. And I connected with some of my beautiful friends. So I actually had a previous client that was there. I actually got to meet my coach for the first time in person, and other people that I had done coaching containers with, that I had been in, that I got to meet in real life, and they were from all around the world. And so I just felt so held as I was telling everyone what was going on. And we did our opening ceremony, and I remember saying, look, I've got to keep my phone on me. Mum's having the surgery today, and I'm just waiting to hear how it all went. And I remember getting a missed call through WhatsApp because we had data and we were able to communicate with WhatsApp. And I remember getting a missed call and thinking, this is really odd. Like, why is a random number calling me? And I get a text message saying, hey, Janet's mum, can you call me urgently? So I excused myself after the opening ceremony. And it was my mum in the most distressed state saying, look, the surgery went well, but whilst I was in theatre, someone's broken in and stolen my phone and my iPad. And my heart just sank. I was like, fuck. Like, how could this happen? Like, the run that we'd had already with shit hitting the fan, how could this be? And like this then cut her off from speaking to family back home in Australia, speaking to me, communicating with me, having anything to do. Like she had like, you know, her card games and stuff on her iPad and movies to watch. And the biggest one being Google Translate, because a lot of the people, like there was one nurse that we met the whole time at the hospital that spoke English. So to be able to communicate how she was feeling and what she needed, we really needed her to have Google Translate. And so I just couldn't believe it. And because I was so far away, I felt so helpless. And I was in touch with my sister back over in Australia, trying to work out what we could do. And I remembered a friend of mine who had reached out to me and saw that I was in Paris, and he lived in Paris. And he'd said to me, because I'd kept, you know, updating a few people on social media with what was happening. And I knew at that moment that I had to reach out and ask for help. And so this friend that lived in Paris, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I really need your help. This is what's happened to my mum. Can you please source a mobile phone and a SIM card? I will pay you for it. I need it to get to the hospital, though. I don't know if you can put it in a cab or something and get it delivered. And I'd never met this guy. We had connected on social media and just, you know, we'd exchanged messages before. And he's actually from Brisbane, where I was from. And I didn't realize that. I actually thought he was French. I'd never actually heard his voice before. And anyway, he said to me, oh my gosh, you know, I'm so sorry to hear this is what's happened. Sure, I'm at a festival at the moment, but tomorrow I'll be back in Paris. I can organize a phone and a SIM card and I can get it to your mum. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what an angel, an actual earth angel on this path to support me. Not only that, I had one of the other participants of the retreat who was French, and she spoke French. And so she was able to call the hospital from, you know, the retreat and speak to the nurses or the doctors to try and get an update and then relay in English what it all meant and how the actual surgery went, because we really had no way of identifying anything without Google Translate. And so a few days went by. Actually, no, the next day on the Sunday, I was out on a tour with the group and my phone rang, and it was a FaceTime, and it was this beautiful earth angel that had organized a phone, gone to the hospital, and it's him in the hospital ward with my mum FaceTiming me to let me know that he's dropped off the phone, he's set up WhatsApp for her, and everything was okay. And so just to be able to be reconnected to my mum and be able to talk to her and for her to message me if she needed anything was just everything to me. It was everything in the shitstorm that was going on. It was the best possible thing that could have happened. And so then we were able to stay in touch. She was able to stay in touch with family. By this stage, we had also contacted the insurance company that we went through to let them know what was going on, and then started the proceedings to be able to get support from the insurance company. And then the Monday, we just did a few bits and pieces as part of the retreat. And then Tuesday was the main day that we went to the cave of Mary Magdalene, the cave of eggs, and the grotto. And this day changed my life. I had said to my family, I said to my sister mostly, who was also in touch with my mum, I just need this day to myself. Like there had been a lot going on in between trying to support mum in the best way that she needed it, trying to deal with things for the insurance company, trying to just make sure everything was okay at the hospital. And I said to them, I said, unless anything's urgent, please just let me have the Tuesday. I just need to drop into this experience. I can head back to Paris if anything's urgent, if needed, but please just give me the Tuesday. And so on this particular day, we all got up early and we took cars out to the place where the Cave of Eggs is and the grotto of Mary Magdalene. And I looked up at this side of a cliff, basically, and I was like, oh, that's a bit cute. And then I realized we actually had to hike this cliff. And it was so interesting because not only was the whole experience of going to the cave of Mary Magdalene, the cave of eggs, the grotto, not only that was just such a powerful thing within itself, but also the hike was as well, because being in nature is beautiful, but like having to scale like the side of a cliff with rock faces and all the things that come with hiking, it's a lot. You learn about yourself. You really get to check in with your body. There was times where the group would just walk in silence because we were just tuning in to the energy of the place. It was such a powerful place to be. And I just remember just being so grateful to be there and being so shocked that what had happened to mum had happened, and questioning why she couldn't be with me like she wanted to be so badly on this trip. And I remember thinking to myself, like, had she been at the retreat, had she gone on this hike to the caves, there's no way she would have made it in her, health condition, even before the break, with the knee injury. And, it's quite a journey. Like, you need to be physically fit to be able to get through this journey. Like, there is a lot involved. So what mum was experiencing in Paris, being in hospital, was, I felt like, somewhat of a blessing in disguise, because had she come along to the retreat, there's actually no way she could have done, the hike and the journey, because it was an all-day thing. And I haven't actually shared publicly my experience of being in the Cave of Eggs. And I feel like it's because I haven't been able to find the human words for it. So not only was the experience of hiking to get there a journey within itself, but when we got to the Cave of Eggs, the energy of the place was next level. It was beyond words and comprehension to know that that is where Mary Magdalene herself had been. And to go into the cave, like, it's literally shaped like a yoni. And it's so interesting because, Mary Magdalene is, the goddess of the divine feminine. And it's so interesting because going into the cave, it was slippery. It was wet. Like, the walls were wet. It was exactly like a yoni. And even just the journey to get into the cave, because it was all damp inside, like, it was muddy. We had to hold on to the sides of the cave to make our way down through the mud to the base of this cave. And it was dangerous. Like, there was sharp rocks, like one wrong footing and you could easily slip and hurt yourself. And luckily everyone was okay. And then just going into the cave, and at the back of the cave, it's only quite a small cave, but at the back of the cave, there is an altar where you can leave an offering for Mary Magdalene. And we just had some like little egg-shaped things that we left there. And I just remember this overwhelming sense and feeling come over me that I had to go through everything in my whole entire life for that very moment. And I felt as though my life so far, like, I had walked through life with my relationship with Dave, and he'd walked me to a certain point, and then he handed me over to my mum and said, take her to France with you. And then it was like my mum walked me to a certain point, and then she was like, no, you need to go to the cave, go out to the world. You need to discover this by yourself. It was almost like I grew up in a way that only a woman knows how to grow, if that makes sense. It opened something within me, this deep connection to the divine feminine. It showed me the strength I had inside to get through any situation. There were so many times where I questioned, like, why is this happening? Why the breakup? Why mum being injured? Why do I have to journey through this alone? And it was through that experience of being there, I understood my deep sense of why. It's because I had to experience it for myself on my own and just receive everything. Because had I gone with my mum, I just would have been looking out for her the whole time, worried about her doing another injury or not being fit enough to do this walk, this hike up the side of the mountain. And so just being in the energy of this cave and how sacred it was changed me. The energy of the place changed me. It's like it just amplified this divine feminine essence that had already been flowing through me, and how I just got to just be in my fullest expression. And after we left the cave, so it was a journey to even get out of the cave. I remember my beautiful coach slash friend Rosie was sort of standing at the top of a rock where it was really, really hard to scale up. And she just reached out and she grabbed my hand and she's like, "I've got you." And she pulled me up out of the cave. And I was just so overwhelmed with feelings that I just I just couldn't believe I was there and what I had experienced. And then we continued on with the hike and we went to the grotto of Mary Magdalene, which is in the side of a cliff. And I'm talking like literally in the side of a cliff. Like there is a natural like waterfall in there, or like where water comes through. It is cold, it is damp, and it is so beautiful. And it brought me to tears. It brought me to tears that I was actually there, and that the story of Mary Magdalene as well, that I grew up with knowing, like I grew up in a Catholic tradition, and Mary Magdalene was always portrayed as a prostitute and a bad person. And it's so far from the truth. Like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene literally has the first 7 pages ripped out and no one knows where they are, because it's said that she held so much power that she actually passed on to Jesus or Yeshua, that's what gave him his power to do the work that he did. But the Catholic Church didn't like that, and so they got rid of it. And honestly, if you're interested in, like, I'm not a religious person whatsoever. I grew up in a religious family and went to a religious school and went to church, but I'm not a religious person. Spiritual, yes. Religious, no. But if you're interested in hearing all about Mary Magdalene, there's some amazing books out there, and I'll link to those in the show notes. There's a really good one by Megan Watterson as well. And there's so much misinformation. I think maybe that's why I resonate with Mary Magdalene so much, is because she was the misunderstood one, yet she was the embodiment of divine feminine. And so that's what I was attracted to. I was like, I get the misrepresentation. I understand what that means, what that feels like. And I understand what it's like to be able to, tap into the divine feminine and just how sacred we are as the feminine, which is why I was really drawn to her, and why, she came through to me in a plant medicine ceremony. Like I literally saw her and felt her, and she gave me this guidance to work with her, and I just wasn't ready at the time, and that's okay. And so then in the grotto, we lit candles and we just connected to her essence there. And I remember just being in there and just feeling so deeply, and it was almost like she had come to me again and started pulsing through my veins. It was like my heartbeat was her heartbeat. It was like an activation happened inside to really harness working with the divine feminine, and she was going to guide me in this way. I felt it so deeply. And we ended up hiking, the rest of this cliff, and we went up to there's like a little chapel that is believed to be where she ascended with angels. And even that, it was so beautiful. It was so windy at the top there, and the views were incredible. Like you could see so much of the south of France, and it was like a homecoming. It was like I had just returned to myself, and I felt like everything in my life had dropped into place and that I was on the right path and that everything was perfect, even though things had been a shitstorm, even though back in Paris, my mum was going through a really hard time and things were falling apart. I just felt like I was so divinely guided through all of this. And so that afternoon, we went to the Basilica of Mary Magdalene down in one of the provinces, and that was a really beautiful experience as well. And then that evening, we all went out for a nice dinner. We got dressed up. It was like we had our own experiences in one way or another, but we all were feeling something. And so we all came together to have a meal together, have a glass of wine, and it was a beautiful evening. And then when I got back to the beautiful place that we were staying at, I had a call from my sister, and she said, "Mum's not okay. You need to get back to Paris." And my heart just sank because I knew that this might happen. My mum does have a heart condition, and when she's had a general anesthetic, things can play up for her. And unfortunately, she wasn't receiving the care or the medication or the support that she needed in hospital, and she was genuinely not okay. So I booked a taxi for the following morning to leave to get to the train station. I'd been so at peace with leaving the retreat as well. I was so grateful that I got to have the experience though that day to go to the caves. That's what I'd come for. And anything else was going to be a bonus extra on top of that. And so the following morning, like I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to sleep. But the following morning, I got up and I got a taxi all the way back to the train station, got the train for 3 hours back to Paris, got to Paris, and I called an Uber to go straight to the hospital to see my mum. When I was in the Uber, I was in a car accident. It was only mild. Everything was fine. I was fine. My luggage was fine. But I was like, what the fuck, Paris? Like, what the fuck are you trying to teach me? And I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I got to the hospital and it was mid-morning, and the visiting hours aren't until 1 o'clock. So I had to talk my way through security at the front of the hospital to try and explain to them that I'm not just there visiting, that there's actually something wrong. Because I had all my luggage with me as well. Like I had my big suitcase, I had carry-on luggage, I had my handbag. I wasn't just walking through the gate, I was taking all of my stuff in with me. And so I got into the hospital and I ran up and I saw my mom and found out what was going on. And then one of the nurses came in and I almost lost my shit. I was like, how could you let this happen? Like, what in all fuckery is going on here? And the nurse in broken English was trying to say to me, you're not allowed to be in here. It's not visiting hours. And I was saying to her, but you're not looking after her. I'm here to look after her. And so I kind of got into this heated discussion slash fight slash argument with this French nurse that we were like fighting through Google Translate. So we were arguing backwards and forwards. It was the most heated but non-heated way of communicating. It was actually kind of funny. In the end, I thought, look, I'm going to need this nurse as an ally. I shouldn't be here fighting with her. I will accept what she says about not being here during visiting hours and I'll come back. I thought, look, I haven't eaten all day. I need to go get some lunch. I'll be back. And plus I had to go and fill a prescription at the pharmacy for my mum. So anyway, went off and did that and then came on back a little bit later when it was visiting hours and I was allowed back and stayed with mom. And, by this stage, like she was really not in a good place, both with her health and then also, mentally as well, being there, being cut off, mostly from family, not having anyone around, not being given the pain relief that she needed, being served shit food, just being in like living in a nightmare takes its toll real bloody quickly on mental health, as it would with anyone. So she was actually in a really dark place. And I was onto the phone to the insurance company multiple times saying, we need to get her out of here. I don't care if we have to get an air ambulance back to Australia. We need to get her out of here. And all we needed was a fit to fly. So a sign off from the doctor to say that she was safe to be able to fly. And so this was on the Wednesday I got back, and then she was finally discharged on the Friday, and we spent some time in a hotel whilst the insurance company organized our trip home on the Saturday. And during that time where we would just sit, whether it was in the hotel room or wherever we were, and just be and just talk, I could never have imagined how deep my relationship with my mum could be. What we got to talk about, what we got to share, how her and I just got to bond in a way that I could never have imagined was such a blessing. And, without sharing too much of her experience, because that's obviously very private to her, she had her experience with Mary Magdalene in the hospital, even though she wasn't at the retreat. She got so many downloads and received so much, even though she went through this absolute nightmare. And, one of the conditions of flying home so early was that she had to be lying flat. So, I mean, of course we had to fly back business class. I mean, there's no other way. And do you know what's really interesting is when we were like booking the trip and getting ready to go, I kept visualizing and manifesting her and I getting upgraded to business class. I kept seeing it. I kept feeling it. Like I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to be in business class. And then when it happened, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is not what I meant. I did not mean for it to be that mum broke her fucking hip in order to get upgraded to business class. I'm like, oh my gosh, my manifesting skills, what have I done? Like, I need to be more specific. I want to see us upgraded to business class, but without an emergency situation happening. So I actually found it quite interesting that I was sitting in business class, reclining right back. And look, if you haven't done an overseas trip to business class, oh my God, it's next level. It is like we were on the A380. We flew from Paris to Dubai, and I was just in shock with how incredible this was. Like to lie down on a plane and then they serve you whatever it is that you want to eat. You can watch any show. I remember even just kicking back, listening. They actually have meditations as like part of their entertainment thing. So I was just kicking back with a meditation, just living my best life, trying to block out the fact that it was an absolute shit show, and just so excited we're on our way home, because there was actually a point where we thought we could be there for over a month. We had no idea what the timeline was after her surgery of how long we'd be there. And it was actually the day we were supposed to fly back. We were supposed to fly back on the Monday, and the Wednesday was actually my son's birthday. So we needed to make sure that we were going to be back in time for his birthday. That was the initial plans. And then I remember speaking to him after, mum had the surgery. And I said to him, look, darling, there's a chance I might not be home for your birthday. And the poor thing just lost it. It was his 7th birthday. He just lost it. And he was so devastated. And he actually just took that as though I'm not coming home at all. And I'm like, no, darling, I promise you I'll be home. I just don't know when. And so when we got clearance earlier and we were able to fly home a day earlier than expected, we were just over the moon. We were so ready to get out of there. Like there was times where we'd just look at each other and we'd be like, fucking Paris, like, fuck the French, fuck Paris, like, let's just get home. And so being on the plane home was just literally the best feeling in the world, knowing that we'd made it out of there alive, because there was a very big possibility and chance that I wasn't bringing my mum home with me. It got that bad. And that was a process. Like that was a ridiculously huge process. And I share all of this because I have had a lot of people ask me, how did I deal with this? How did I go through such a traumatic experience and come out the other side? And throughout the whole experience, there was so many earth angels dotted along my path. Like, I shit you not. My friend who lived in Paris that was able to grab a mobile phone for me and a SIM card and take it to her. Incredible. The beautiful friend that was on the retreat with me that could speak French and was able to translate for me. Earth angel. One of our Uber drivers that took us from the hospital when mum was discharged to our hotel that we were staying at before we could fly out. Earth angel. There was just people everywhere. Oh, the guy that was on the street that I ran out to when I had to call an ambulance that spoke French and English. Earth angel. And I actually bumped into him later on that week when a couple of days later, that's right, because he was just doing his daily walk and I was just outside, and we bumped into each other. He's like, how's your mom? How's your mom? So, and he was genuinely concerned. And our Airbnb host constantly every day in touch. How's your mom? Do you need anything else? Is there anything else I can do? Do you need to extend your stay? What do you need? And so even though there was a shitstorm, there was actually so much magic in it as well. And I remember there was one day I was in Paris and I was sitting down to lunch, and this beautiful live jazz music, there was this little band playing across the road from the restaurant, just started playing. And I remember just sitting there going, holy fuck, I'm in Paris. Like, regardless of what's going on, I'm in Paris. I'm having this experience that is throwing so much at me, but I'm still here and I have my health and I get to be a beacon of light for my mum through this experience. And I get to be in the experience of just Paris and the energy of it, and seeing the Eiffel Tower and, seeing all of these incredible places and just being in the energy of it. There was just so much emotion and feeling that I was constantly having that it was wild. It was wild. And so that's my story with going overseas. And even though it was a shit show, even though my mum was not okay for a period of time, everything was still okay. I had so many beautiful friends in Australia that would touch base with me every day, that would call me and check in. My sister, my incredible sister back in Australia, we would take things in shifts regarding, caring for mum, dealing with hospital stuff and dealing with the insurance company. So because we were on opposite sides of the day, so I would, sleep at night and it would be her daytime. So she would take care of stuff. And then when she would go to bed, I was on duty basically. And even one of mum's work colleagues in Australia had offered to fly over and come and be there and sit with mum if I had to return to Australia, and I didn't want to leave her on her own. And so even though all of these things felt as though they were just breaking down around us, I truly found the magic in it. And I tried to notice whether I was just trying to toxically experience positivity to bypass feeling like crap. Like, oh no, it's going to be okay. It's fine. Just that whole toxic positivity culture does my fucking head in. But the way that I got through it was acceptance. So acceptance of every single thing that came up. Like, there was things, that I haven't mentioned in, retelling my story that happened, things at the hospital, things with the staff, things with my mum, things with family, things with friends that were going on back in Australia. The thing is, we get to decide how we handle things. And so I found a strength within me that I didn't even know was possible. I didn't know that I had this level of courage to step into every single moment and face it head on until I was in it. And I remember, like, my mum would say to me, Jen, I couldn't have done this without you. And, my family really honored the fact that I was there and was able to be there for mum. And it wasn't until I got home that I kind of handed mum over to my family, to my dad. And I'm like, I just need to rest. And I got home for my son's birthday. I made it back for that. In fact, I made it home, a day earlier, which was very special. And luckily, it was school holidays as well, because I just gave myself the grace to just be. And for me, that was such a big part of integrating all of what had happened, not only the experience that I had through this, this divine connection with Mary Magdalene, but essentially saving my mum's life and making sure that I did everything in my power to bring her home alive, and holding space for my family going through all of this as well. And I checked in with myself constantly. Am I genuinely okay? Can I get through this? And, mum and I joke now about having PTSD from PTSD in Paris, and saying, title of my next book. But I know that I have full trust and acceptance that what happened was how it was meant to be, and that I was meant to find the courage inside to hold space and move forward and to receive all that I received from it. And even now, like, looking back on it, this is the first time, like I said, I've spoken publicly about it. I didn't share everything on social media. I have shared things with friends. And it was really interesting because when I got back, like, friends would want to catch up and say, oh my gosh, what happened? And I found myself repeating the story. And there was only a couple of times where I just allowed myself, where it stopped just being my story and it became my experience. And in that, I just cried and cried and cried and just let it all out and just broke down. And again, it's that mosaic experience. It's like that wrecking ball to a mirror, where it feels like everything just shatters around you. And from there, you get to pick up the pieces and make a mosaic and make art from your life. And that's my story. And that has been the two big catalysts for change and transformation in 2023. If someone had had a crystal ball on New Year's Day at the start of this year and told me what was ahead, I would have been like, fuck off. Nuh-uh. But I mean, it's what eventuated. And, I truly feel like we are gifted these opportunities in life in order to grow, in order to evolve. And for me, like, I have a secret handshake with the universe. I decided this a long time ago, that I am open to receiving wisdom, like channeling guidance, having experiences that are going to teach me something, provided I share that. So I'm an open channel. I receive the information, experiences, downloads, and then I share them out. And I find that this happens a lot with, we can call them light workers, way showers, the sacred rebels, anyone who's in a position of leadership, ushering in the awakening and this new experience of life. We have to go through the stuff in order to be able to carry other people through it. And so sometimes I question why all of this had to happen to me. Why couldn't I just have the easy road? Why couldn't it just be enjoyable? And then I come back and I think about it, and it's like, well, it's made me a better human. It's made me a better mom. It's made me a better daughter. It's made me a better sister. It's made me a better coach and facilitator and practitioner in my work. And I am so grateful for all of it. As much as it's been a storm, it has come in and it has cleared out so much stuff, and it's given an opportunity for rebirth and growth. And for that, I am so grateful. And so through that, through this experience, I've really got to get super clear on even deeper what my purpose is in this lifetime, what it is that I want to share in this world. Who do I want to be in this world? What do I want to support other humans through as we walk through this incredible journey of life, this wild and precious human experience. And so through all of this, I've gotten so clear on what that is. And it's supporting other people to discover their purpose and to really break down all of the conditioning that has led them to believe that they are anything but a divine human. And it's been such a blessing to have all of this and to live the life that I get to live and have these platforms in which I can share all of this. And so coming into season 2 of this podcast, I'm coming in with a refreshed frame of mind. The whole premise of the enLIFEned podcast is about the enlightened journey of life. And I want to go deeper. I want to go more expansive. I want to provide so much light to people and really hone in on how we can live life and just how precious this life is, and how we just get a shot at this time round, and how vital it is to experience all parts. And that's what I'm here for. And so, for me in my work at the moment, it's about being there to support the way showers and the sacred rebels, the people that are like, I am so done with this old way of being. I'm done with playing small. I want to discover my purpose. And it's not necessarily going to align with having a business. It could be around aligning with, being a mother, or being the most incredible lover, or creating music, or making food come together on a plate for others to be nourished. Like, there's so many people out there that just don't realize what their purpose is here, because they're stuck with, being on that hamster wheel of life, going through the motions, and then getting to the end of their life and going, fuck, that was shit. I am here for the ones that want more from life, that want to experience everything, that then perhaps want to teach other people how to do the same, and that want to do the work on themselves to become so wildly liberated and free within their own selves that life is beyond their wildest dreams. So that's what I'm here for. And that's what I'm going to be bringing through on this podcast as well. Of course, you can follow me on social media. So my Instagram handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial. If you want to follow along that journey, and my website, www.jenhamilton.coach, will always provide you with my offerings. So whether you're looking at coaching or, support through hypnotherapy, past life regression therapy, I have online programs and courses, and at times I offer different things, and women's circles in Brisbane, and cacao ceremonies, and all of the amazing stuff, because what I'm here for is people to awaken, and I'm walking this path with you. So thank you so much for joining me on this first episode back for season 2. It has been an honor to be able to share my story, and I hope you can take something away from this. I hope you can take away a little slice of wisdom through perhaps my experience that you can start to embody into your own life. So thank you so much for being here. And I truly hope that you enjoy all of the upcoming episodes and interviews that I have got lined up. If you'd ever like to guest on a show, please contact me through the enLIFEned_podcast Instagram page is probably the best way, or my personal Instagram page, jenhamilton.coach. If there's a particular topic that you want to hear, please also reach out to me. If you love the enLIFEned podcast, and if you feel as though you want other people to hear it, please feel free to share it. The biggest compliment that you can give me is to leave a rating and review, so that more people around this beautiful world can hear it as well. I am signing off now. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the enLIFEned podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enLIFEned_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search enLIFEned and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.